Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talent Talks with Phoenix Recruitment. I'm delighted to be joined here by Pat Moran, partner for Cybercrime and IT Forensics in PwC. Pat, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Ed. Looking forward to it.
So I guess just give us an insight into what your role is now and what your team do on a day-to-day basis.
I've got an interesting role at the moment. I'm, as you say, the leader of cybersecurity, privacy and forensics, and I have a team of over 50 people in PwC. It's the largest of the big four. Great team, comprising of a number of people at the graduate level, but also at the manager, senior manager and director level as well. What we do is really help clients manage their data in a secure way. So, as we know, data now is the oil of every organization, and keeping it secure, keeping it private, managing it that it doesn't break any rules or fall foul of any regulations are some real challenges organizations have. Our work from day to day is quite different, but if I give you a flavour of maybe some of the projects that we have on currently. Data privacy was a big issue for organisations when GDPR came out last year. That continues to be the case, and we see more and more organisations now get on the wrong side of GDPR rules, and as a result of that have breaches, and we've seen recently from our Data Protection Commissioner offices that the number of data breaches that have occurred has increased significantly as well. So organisations continually need to do work to make sure that they do the right things when it comes to data privacy, and we're helping organisations all the time in this particular area. Obviously, losing information and losing data continues to happen from day to day, and organisations engage with us to help to identify, well, how did that happen, what amounts of data has been taken, and perhaps money being lost as a result of that. So we do get involved with managing those events and incidents, and we have a number of those on the go as well. So quite wide ranging, quite varied, great team, and every day is different.
It's an interesting space to be in, I assume, at the moment. It's obviously becoming quite prominent even in the press, but I guess for anyone at home who doesn't understand cybersecurity, maybe even cybercrime, in essence, what is cybercrime?
Yeah, cybercrime is where organisations lose either data or money as a result of adversaries gaining access to data and information. Again, I suppose best described by perhaps some examples. Again, we run our economic crime survey every 2 years. We're about to launch it now.
Last year.
Yes, exactly. We launch it again now. So just getting organisations now to participate in it this month, and we'll launch it probably early in 2020. Okay. But if you look at the stats coming from even last year's one out, we see cybercrime has risen up the charts as being the number one area where clients and organisations are losing money in data, and it's been the biggest fraudulent area. And then when you deep dive and get behind that, again, most organisations are losing money, losing data, because there's still emails are coming in with attachments, with links to them that are diverting money and information to the wrong people's hands. So when I talk about cybercrime, there's a number of different facets of it, but the one that I think is the most relevant and pertinent is that what they call the phishing emails that are coming in. There are other aspects to cybercrime as well, and we see it at different levels. But the geopolitical risk is probably one of the most serious ones at the moment, and that's an increased threat to organisations and to countries, where we see that happening more and more.
And are you referring to like the Brexit, or what do you mean when you say geopolitical?
That's where some of the bigger nations are funding operations to enable them to gain access to strategies, intellectual property and intelligence in order to gain their political advantage.
Wow, okay. And then, I know the 2018 survey that you did, I read, even in Ireland alone, was it over 10% of firms that had been hit by cybercrime were hit for more than 4 million, is that correct?
That's right, yes,
Wow, okay.
yeah.
And I guess we'll get into the detail around the Irish landscape around cybercrime or cybersecurity in a bit. Take us back to you. So obviously it's been an interesting pathway, starting from college, so you did
Computer science, Trinity,
okay.
yes.
What brought you to that? Were you always interested in technology?
Yeah, I suppose from a very early age I got enough money together to get myself a Commodore 64 PC.
I'm not going to even pretend I know what that is.
And it would be well before you were born. And anyway, so I got enough money for that, and played my PC games as you do with your first computer. That kind of opened my mind up to what these things are, and put me in a route, I suppose, after school to do something of a computer science nature. Things were quite different then, Ed. There weren't that many PCs around. My first job, we had one PC that had access to the internet, and there was a modem attached to it and a phone line, and it was a separate phone line, and you had to book your time on the PC on a book that was available within the office. Absolutely. So things changed quite quickly from there. So from my first job, which was with AIB actually, and enjoyed that. Worked with their internal audit function. And you might ask, well, what does technology and internal audit have in common? Well, at the time, the bank was going through its own computer change, and in fact, the bank at the time was one of the first adopters of PCs and networks, and obviously with that comes a level of risk and security that needs to be managed. And that kind of, again, brought me into that area that, I could understand that this was going to be a key topic going forward. I noticed an ad one day in the paper for a consultancy position with a company called Arthur Andersen. And Arthur Andersen at the time were one of the big five, as it was, and a growing US multinational. Joined those guys in 1996 and started a function called Computer Risk Management. Grew that to about 15-20 people, all going very well, until one day we got a phone call from our office in Houston. Yes, indeed, yeah. And it was like you see in the movie Houston, we have a problem.
It's called Enron.
Enron happened, and it was such a shame because a great organisation like Anderson imploded very quickly over a short period of time. I jumped on the bus to EY in 2002 along with a number of others, and started up a similar function for EY, and I then started growing that out until the time when about 2010 one of my clients was moving to Australia, and asked me if I would support them in terms of their transition and getting them established. So contacted my office in Australia and made them aware of my client moving across. They became very interested in supporting my client and in turn me as well. Interesting challenge for me.
And you moved to Australia for 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years, yeah. Moved the kids, Alison came with me as well.
Wow, so big move.
Big challenge, yes, big challenge, big opportunity. It's funny, when I came home initially, my wife was a little bit reluctant to take this big step. Why would we change everything that we have and to take a risk? And I listened, as good husbands do, and discussed as good husbands do. And I think we both came to the conclusion very quickly that life's about opportunity, and these things don't come around very often. And it would be good for us as a family, good for me as a professional. So I moved there and had fantastic 2 years there. Leading.
What age were your kids at the time?
There were, we had twins and they were 10 at the time, so good time for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Good growth opportunities for them, new schools, new
Culture,
environments, new culture, new lifestyles, new sports, and they really enjoyed it. And I think it's a time of their lives now that they look back on, and they've really enjoyed it, and probably gives them the strength and the courage to take on those kind of opportunities themselves one day.
For sure. We obviously deal with a lot of people within professional services, and Australia is one key location a lot of people go to, whether they're finished their training contract, maybe not always at the level that you were at. How much value is there in that international move?
Tremendous value.
Okay.
It allows you to travel and to transfer and to do it in a very efficient and easy way.
Okay.
You do learn about new skills about yourself as well.
Sure you do, yeah.
So things that you probably thought that you couldn't do, you do. It gives you lots of confidence about it. You learn not just new skills, but you broaden your network as well. And then when you come back to Ireland and you share with clients and your colleagues about your experience internationally, that's quite a powerful exchange as well. So
it's a great experience to build up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, and I guess give us an insight into what the IT risk or cyber landscape was like even before you went to Australia. When you started out first in Anderson's, obviously compared to today, it's probably incomparable, but
very different.
Yeah, so give us an insight into what it looked like. What were the key risks at that stage?
Yeah, so I suppose, if we go back to, it's nearly 20 years ago now, what are the kind of things organisations were worrying about when it comes to IT risk? And of course, cyber really hadn't been born yet. It was probably called IT security or information security. If I'm being honest, Ed, it was a challenge to get into boardrooms and to get the topic onto the agenda.
Okay.
Many times I would have been relegated to an AOB part of the agenda.
Okay.
And normally you'd run out of time and would be carried forward to the next meeting. So you kind of had to push your way in to get budget, to get investment. To now it being probably one of the first things on the agenda. Organisations no longer see it as a problem for IT departments to manage and to look after. They now see it as part of something that's very important for them, not just from a defensive point of view, but from a business point of view. So organisations that are building in security and building in the right controls into their new designs, their new platforms.
Into their culture even, I'd imagine.
Into their culture, exactly. They're the ones that are increasing their market share and their business as well. Excuse me. We produced a survey called Digital Trust Insights over the last number of months. And again, what we're seeing is the more successful companies are the ones that are bringing security right to the front of their agenda and building it in both into their products and services, but also, as you say, into their culture and into the awareness levels that they have within their organisations.
And it's like most threats, I guess, it's not a threat until it happens. Would that be fair enough to say? And is that what's kind of held a number of businesses back in terms of implementing processes or procedures around it? Or
yes, I mean, unfortunately, again, we can see, this is where my Australia experience comes into play. Typically the Irish organisation, and probably I would be a bit unfair to brand everybody in this category, but still we definitely do see still a lot of Irish organisations have an attitude to, well, that'll never happen here, or we'll never be stupid enough to send funds to the wrong account because we got an email in from a supplier.
Yeah.
And it's only when something bad happens that organisations actually sit up and say, okay, actually we need to improve the culture, or we need to have a policy, or we need to check more carefully who we hire, rather than taking things ad lib. So sadly, and again back to our economic crime survey, we're seeing the level of fraud and the level of cybercrime in Ireland shoot off the charts. I mean, you compare it to other countries, we are increasing our levels of cybercrime much higher than other countries are.
And are companies prepared for it? For the most part, are companies in Ireland prepared for what might be coming down the track?
The larger ones are, right? The larger ones do a lot of scenario planning and crisis management, and they're building in cyber into their overall risk management framework, which is the right place to be.
Yeah.
But sadly, a number of organisations just aren't, and it's the ostrich in the sand type thing, which is a shame. And I think for those organisations, even taking some steps around managing what an incident would look like in advance would be a fantastic move forward for them.
So what are the key steps for businesses, let's say, that may be listening to this? What are the top 4 or 5 maybe key things to develop now rather than wait?
Sure. Really good question. So I kind of, when I'm talking to clients around this area, I talk to them in 3 areas. It's the people side, first of all. So if I've got €100 investment for cyber security, I put 95 of that 100 into people. And the reason why is the more awareness there is, the more vigilance there'll be. You can have the best technologies in the world, but if people are still clicking on spurious links or sharing information that they shouldn't be, you're going to have issues. The other 2 areas, process is important as well, and we now have good processes available for organisations to look at. So there's things like ISO, there's guidance from our cyber crime unit, National Cyber Crime Unit. So there's some good processes and standards and methodologies that organisations can look at. And then the last area is technology. And again, technology has improved significantly, ensuring that data is more secure going forward. And small examples like encrypting your laptops, which most organisations now thankfully are doing. There's good security tools out there that will mind and monitor the data that's coming into your network to ensure that there's no sort of malware on it or things that can really compromise your level of security there. So the 3 areas, people, process and technology, would be the areas to focus on.
Okay, brilliant. And so talent is obviously something that we talk about a lot, hence the podcast. It's a skill set and an area that is still probably trying to catch up with itself. Is that fair enough to say here in Ireland, in terms of local talent pools?
Yes, yeah. The issue is, and I've seen some stats, I'm sure you've seen them as well, that the number of jobs to fill in cybersecurity is there's significant thousands of open positions. So we have a real scarcity of talent to come in and lots of positions to fill. Again, if you look at an Ireland lens here to it, or the 3rd levels, the colleges are doing their best to try to catch up and provide enough courses and master's programs, particularly in this area. And colleges like UCD, National College of Ireland, and a number of other colleges are putting on master's programs purely for cybersecurity and information security now, which is great. But the difficulty is we're not turning them out fast enough. So we've got a real challenge there. They also, because cybersecurity is a global demand as well, it's hard to retain really good people that are here as well.
Yeah.
And we're losing really good people to other countries and other jurisdictions as a result of the global demand. So a lot of work to do in this particular area, and over time I think we'll get there hopefully.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because you have a 4-year cycle, whether it's a college course, and probably by the end of the 4 years, the skills that you learned in the first year are almost redundant, I'd imagine, at the pace
That's right.
things are moving.
Yes, yeah.
So the cyber crime or cyber gangs that you're, I assume, monitoring or that are out there globally, they're at the leading edge of where the cyber technology is at, I'd imagine. How do you keep up with these gangs?
Yeah, these gangs or adversaries are doing probably a better job at cybersecurity and managing cyber risk and exploiting cybersecurity vulnerabilities than many organisations have. And we're seeing examples with companies like Microsoft, where some of their vulnerabilities are being exploited faster than they can patch them. So the 0-day vulnerabilities that we know about. Within PwC, we do a service where we manage and monitor these adversaries. We follow about 180 gangs that exist across the world. And we do that. We look at their footprints. We collate that information about them and then share that with our clients and with law enforcement as is appropriate. These guys are smart. They share information with each other, even though they're rival gangs. Their eBay is the dark web. And one of the things we're trying to do much more of is, particularly with industry, is to try and get industry to share intelligence about what they're seeing, and being able to proactively preempt where the next exploit is going to come from, or the next attack's going to come from as well.
Very hard to predict, I'd imagine, is it?
It is, yeah, exactly. And particularly with the new tools that are out there as well. We talked earlier about artificial intelligence. We talked about all the robotic operations that are now available. And of course, these are tools in the wrong hands can do a lot of damage as well.
So I noticed you did a TED talk recently in Monte Carlo, which is very insightful, and a lot of it around the Internet of Things and the connectivity of the world. Obviously that brings its own threats as well, I'd imagine, right? With the likes of voice and Siri becoming more prominent just in day-to-day searches and stuff. I don't know, we talked about it earlier on, a recent article I read where essentially a cyber gang impersonated someone through AI and voice recognition software to transfer a huge amount of money into a bank account. Is that a major threat that maybe people haven't thought about, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the attack vectors that they're using are becoming a lot more sophisticated, a lot more frequent, and I think in terms of trying to keep ahead of these adversaries and their new tools, digital tools that they're using, is a big challenge for organisations. And probably an impossible one as well. So my guidance for organisations is it's not if it happens, if you're going to lose data or you're going to lose money, it's when. And if you go with that kind of mindset, then organisations generally will practice and prepare for when the inevitable happens. And that's where the scenario planning happens, that's where the incident management happens. And if you're doing that for the first time in a real life situation, the chances of you making the wrong call, the wrong decisions is a lot higher. So again, that incident management and being prepared is really important.
Okay, interesting. And let's bring it back to you again just for a second. As a partner in obviously a leading firm, the route to partner is something that we talk to a lot of people about. I know it's in a niche area for you, but the challenge of getting to that level, is there any advice you can give people to maybe get into a partner level? What are the key skills that you feel?
Yeah, well, I've been a partner now for 16, 17 years, so getting there is a challenge and it's hard work. When you arrive there, it's very satisfying, very fulfilling. But the hard work doesn't stop once you get there either. Right? But let's talk about getting there in the first place. So yeah, it's there's probably three key areas I think that have worked for me at least anyway. And the first one is around people, because you can only be as good as the people that you have around you, and having a good team behind you, having some good coaches around you, having a great boss that will push you through and stretch you and sponsor you through the different stages, I think is really important. So that people piece, I think, is really important. The second piece is, I guess, keeping on top of what's going on, be it regulatory, be it the vectors that are out there, the different threats that are there, and keeping current, I think, is a real challenge. But I think you need to have that point of view to be credible in the marketplace. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge on the way up to partner, and it's a challenge when you become partner, particularly in a fast-moving area. And I think the other part of it is that work-life balance piece. I think is really important. Getting to partner, you have to make some sacrifices. It's not a 9 to 5 crusade. And it doesn't go to a 9 to 5 once you become partner. But I think you've got to balance it in terms of making the time for the important occasions that you have, either in your family life or in your personal life. And I think, me as a person, if I'm not able to tick the boxes that are not just the work boxes but the life boxes, then I don't think I'd still be here. So I think making the time and getting those priority calls right is really important.
Yeah, the flexibility and the work-life balance is obviously a huge topic. What people talk to people about. I know PwC have done a lot of work around that recently. What's the big changes that you've seen in terms of even employee engagement because of that? Or
it's an important area for us because particularly as our new generation of employees are coming in, having a level of flexibility and having that work-life balance is really important. Not everybody that comes in the door into PwC wants to become a partner.
True.
So we've got to allow for different individuals and their styles and their demands on us. We've gone through quite a significant amount of change recently. We've embarked upon the G Suite platform, and that gives us quite a bit of flexibility in terms of connectivity, mobility, working from home, etc., working out of hours, things like that. And we're going to just continually look at our processes and go through quite a significant amount of digital change over the next number of years as well to automate our processes. So we talked earlier about robotics and artificial intelligence. Much of our operations within PwC across our lines of service will change quite dynamically over the next number of years. So I think having that level of flexibility, using technology to enable that to happen is really important. But if we're not doing that, Ed, then I think graduates and existing people will take other choices. So a really important both attraction piece and a retention piece for people.
It's a two-sided thing now, isn't it? Really, it's the retention, obviously, of who you have, and then it's the attraction. I think both are subject to having so many choices out there at the moment.
Yes, I mean you look at the and you'll be very familiar with the Dublin platform of technology companies that are here, and to many people that are graduating, they've got lots of choices out there now. So if we want to command a place to get the best of the graduates coming out, we've got to be able to be agile, mobile, and flexible. Otherwise, I think people will be taking other choices.
Brilliant. And the last question, the dreaded B word that everyone's still talking about years after it came out. Obviously, we're approaching October 31st. Yeah. From your perspective and a cyber perspective, what's the potential impact of that for businesses, even locally here in Ireland?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's been bouncing around now over the last number of years, right? And it's been pushed away, and now we're coming to the end of October, and now into September. So it's in our grasp now. So I had a conversation with one of my UK partners last week about it, and he works in the cyber area as well, and the whole area around privacy came up, and come the end of October, what decisions will organisations need to make around where they store their data? Is it within the EU, or will it be outside the EU? And outside the EU, do they fall foul of GDPR regulations? So there's some key decisions organisations make. I'm turning that on its head a little bit, and I'm looking upon it as an opportunity for PwC and for Ireland to put their hands up and say, come 1 November, we will still be in the EU, thankfully, but we will be the only English-speaking country here that has great technology environments, an abundance of data centers, and in fact we need more.
And that's an area that we've seen explode over the last couple of years from even our clients' perspective. A lot more data centers, but a lot more plans to further develop.
To extend and expand. Right, okay. Well, it's interesting because you put that point alongside our Data Protection Commissioner, Alan Dixon, who we've worked with a number of times over the last year. And again, if I'm an organisation and I've got an issue, I've got a problem, I prefer to be going to an English-speaking Data Protection Commissioner who is very well regarded across the world globally for data privacy. I think that's another key asset that Ireland has. So Brexit, yes, has a lot of storm clouds and uncertainty around it, and there's a lot of downside, I think, but there is some upside, and I think the area of data privacy, data centres, data protection, I think Ireland actually could put its hand up and be seen as a leading player here.
Interesting. Okay, well, thanks so much for your time.
Great, thank you.
As always.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.